Watch list brought to you by the all-new 7-seat Isuzu MU-X. Lee Montagna, welcome.
Jared, Jack.
Joey.
Who's that fella? David. That will never get old. That will never get old. All right, watch list. Give us some stuff to work with, because we've all carefully held it all back. It's time to give people...
We thought why not get into it, and I want to start with a bit of the tactical battle, and we can almost get straight into the vision, because we know a lot of emphasis is going to go into May and Lever for the Western Bulldogs if they're to win this game. We've spoken about them all year, and the Dogs in round 19 threw something really interesting at the May and Lever combination in this game. And you can see here that there was a ring-a-ring-a-rosy. There was a cat and mouse going on. This went on for the whole game. And basically, Mitch Hannon is trying to get to Stephen May. So while all the attention has been about Jake Lever, the Dogs went after Stephen May and tried to get the matchup they wanted and tried to get Norton onto Lever. So it was the Dogs forwards that were basically trying to manipulate the matchups that they wanted, and it gave the Melbourne defenders something to think about. So while we're speaking about Josh Shackey and all these sorts of things, you can see here, Hannon says to Norton, you go onto Lever. This is as a forward, remember? And Mitch Hannon played as a defensive forward, basically tagging Stephen May. And it created headaches. And what it forced in the second quarter is, in the end, this whole battle of will became too much for Melbourne. And Stephen May, in the end, said, you know what, bugger this. I'm sick of the ring-a-ring-a-rosy. I'll stay on Mitch Hannon. Jake Lever, you just play on Norton. First time it happened in the second quarter, have a look what happened. Dogs finally win the battle of will. They get a matchup. Aaron Norton outmarks Jake Lever in a contested marking situation. Again, a bit later in the second quarter, same thing. Mitch Hannon trying to get to Stephen May, doing his head in. Norton, he wants Jake Lever. He said, this is the better matchup. Again, in the end, the battle of wills. The Western Bulldogs get their way. They get the matchup they want. And again, another situation, contested mark, Norton on Lever. So I just thought it was fascinating, the look at what the Western Bulldogs dished up, because all the talk is Shackey will just go and tag Lever and play on him, but it actually gave them more to think about. It was really fascinating. Jake Lever had 15 intercept possessions that night, but May had no influence, and the Dogs won.
You haven't gone too early here, Joey, with your absolute goal. Remember,
awesome.
we're 9 days out, mate.
We know Luke Beveridge is a tactical genius, and they've got 2 weeks to plan for this grand final. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they decide to go about that May-Lever matchup.
So play a bloke that draws the ball on the guy that's the interceptor. I like it. I really do like it. We saw Shackey with Aaliyah last week, but clearly that works. Norton's their best forward. Why wouldn't you try and get him on Jake Lever, who wants to jump? It's pretty hard to jump and spoil when the ball's been kicked on your head.
Absolutely. It was a real battle of wills. So fascinating.
How much would it drive you mad not getting what you're supposed to get?
I sort of know Stephen May a little bit. I reckon that would be frustrating for him, but they would have had a look at this now. And if not, you've just done the oppo.
They would have done it. They would have been all over it.
For Melbourne, so they'll know it. But it's going to be interesting to see how they actually go about getting past that tag there, because you think they'll probably go down the same path.
What have you got for us to watch?
Well, that's great vision.
Yeah.
And I just think it's recognition that the interceptor or what you want behind the ball is now king in the game. It really is, because very rarely do we see a tag in the midfield. Mine is going back to what these 2 games have shown us in the past. So round 11, this was the first time the Dogs come up against Melbourne's defensive plan. Full pressure, best in the comp. Number 1, the comp had turned the ball over between the arcs. They just do everything to disrupt your game. But the Dogs had a horror. They had 9 turnovers inside Melbourne's forward 50, their back 50. They just kicked the ball back to them. Now, this is not necessarily coaching or strategy, but it shows you why Melbourne forced you to play a different way. And to concede 43 points in a half of football is just unbelievable. Their previous worst was 18 points for the season. So it just shows the gap in what they do defensively. So clearly the second time around, they changed the way they want to move the ball, play a lot safer, play a lot smarter. But I think any time you take a team outside of the way they want to move the ball, Jack, that's a victory in itself.
What's a stat that we should look for then, Kingy, in terms of we're watching grand final day and checking up on our stats and seeing the Bulldogs moving the ball? Is it actually the ability to generate handball receives in that back half to get it past Melbourne?
Well, I just think the flat number of intercept marks. These took 15 and a half in round 11. Wow. 15 and a half. So just got to get the ball to ground. Those things you've just shown there, full ground. If you can do that full ground and ensure that it's not Salem dropping off or Lever dropping off and taking those intercept marks.
Joey, in the 2 games we've seen between them this year, Melbourne dominated the contested ball.
Yeah, if you want a stat that's a really simple one, and we looked at the tactical side of it, but if you just want to look it down to the meat and potatoes, Jack, we know contest in finals and really in every game of footy is so important. It's fascinating when you look, and again, we referenced the 2 times these sides have played this year. It's been the Western Bulldogs' 2 worst contested possession games for the year against Melbourne. So over the course of the season, the Dogs are ranked 3rd in the competition. It's their strength. And we know when they win, they dominate teams in contested ball. But in their 7 losses this year, 5 times they didn't win the contest. And in these games, they got obliterated. So this is going to be a massive stat for the Western Bulldogs. If they can't fix this up in a grand final, I can't see how they beat Melbourne. So it's going to be a real important watch in this one, because I think as much as we laud the Western Bulldogs midfield, I think Melbourne have shown in the 2 games this year they've got the wood on them in that midfield.
I've had a watch on Stephen Martin last week. We all sort of queried the break glass in case of emergency, but his role on Max Gawn is going to be super important to that contest.
Just got to nullify Gawn, doesn't he? Just give his midfielders a chance at least.
You're mesmerised by the Dogs' setups at stoppages.
Yeah, we've been tracking this on First Crack for half a dozen weeks, and what Bontempelli does in terms of he just shuffles the deck how he wants to set it. But last time in round 19, and again, this is why I think these 2 games are such a bad read. Because what happened in round 11, we just showed, won't happen again. And what happened in round 19 with the forward 50 stoppages was just crazy. I've never seen Melbourne so unorganised at D50 stoppages. Bontempelli kept putting himself in different positions, not the true midfield spot. He'd come up, drop into a half-forward flank role. Salem knew that he was by himself there, couldn't get to him in time. So Bont makes you pay. And this is in the last quarter when they were making a bit of a charge. The Demons were making a charge, and Bont just said, well, if you're not going to stick with me, Harmsy, I'm going to find a way to impact. So 6 goals won from forward 50 stoppages is just ridiculous. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in a grand final. If it does, well, you lift the cup. But everyone talks about Max Gawn and everyone talks about the ruck, hit out to advantage and all those sorts of things. But these guys are used to returning serve in a tennis sense. They're used to having to wait until the hit out's known, then they defend, strip, win it back and go. So Melbourne's ability to maintain possession after that first initial tap, first possession to clearance, is key. If they can do that, they'll break stride, they'll break packs, break traffic and score, but the Dogs are used to that.
Yeah, so that did show how abnormal it was, the 37 points from the forward 50 stoppages when the league average is 7. How much... could the coaches go too deep in the 2 weeks, or is this the most magnificent scenario? Let's just keep digging and keep digging and keep digging.
It would be a balancing act, because no doubt their brains would be ticking over the whole time, and they'd want to try things. And I think these 2 sides probably can come up with stuff, because when your game is in such good order, you know, Jack, when you know how your game is so well sort of ingrained and you know how to play, you can throw in little things as a one-off because you really know what to do. So I reckon there will be something thrown at both these sides that they wouldn't have seen. And I think that could be the difference between winning and losing potentially.
First kick out. Let's see what sort of...
something like that.
Something play with a first kick out, a bit torn out the middle or something like that.
I like it.
I can't wait to see what you bring us next Thursday. That's some great material to have a ponder on the weekend. The watch list as it sets up ahead of the grand final in a couple of weeks' time. Lee Montagna, David King. Most tweeted about moments. Oh, Max. So these do break down into moments. Yeah, that'll get you on the podium. I don't think it'll be Max's only appearance on the podium.
Yeah.
No. So he's there at 3 for that goal. Just the first quarter blitzkrieg from the Dogs. Sat neatly in 2.
Influence there, Jerry.
And then, shall we just go back to Max
Has to
at
be
1?
Maxi.
Oh, yeah. Smashing grab Max.
Just got more absurd the longer it went, the third quarter.
Just chuckling, weren't we all watching this?
Most tweeted about moment 1 and 3 for Max Gawn from the weekend.